Now, the employment of young people is something that's been talked about a lot recently. I mean, I'm talking to you as someone who has never been employed. But what I want to find out is what the problem here is. Like many of my peers, I've never had a job. But we're going to talk about that today, so we're going to discuss it with our panel. We have, what's your name?
Daniel.
And what do you do, sir?
I'm a product designer and music artist.
Ian Francis, Labour Councillor for Anfield Ward.
Natalie Nicholas, Labour Councillor for the Picton Ward.
I'm Tilly Weaver, BA acting student.
And I feel like I'm presenting prizes. Like, I'm over here.
I'm a prize now.
I'm sorry, go on.
I'm Ryan, I'm a director.
George Howarth, the Labour MP for Knowsley.
Courtney, I'm from Manchester, I'm a peer mentor.
I'm Anita, I'm an artist and I work for a theatre company.
I'm Dorcas and I'm a musical theatre student.
So, I want to kick it off with a question. Who here, out of the young people on the panel, who here is employed? Who has a job, earns minimum wage? Okay, that's one. Two. Oh, three, sorry, I couldn't see it. Okay, so you are unemployed at the minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think is the reason behind you not going for full-time or part-time employment?
Well, I was looking for a job before I started properly concentrating on product design, but I wasn't able to find one.
I would love to maybe direct it to the MPs and councillors on the panel. Like, is there anything that you're doing within your area to try and get young people into employment? Because this is an issue that needs to be addressed, don't you think?
I think the first thing is that we've got this government thing called the work programme. And the thing about the work programme is it doesn't work. And so what you find is young people are sent into work situations which are not viable for them. There's not enough money in it. It's not necessarily serious work to be done. So there are things there, but there's also a new subsidy for people who want to go into business on their own, for example. But again, it's a huge step to take. To think that you can set up, run and make money out of a business when you're moving from being unemployed into not a normal sort of employment, but actually employing yourself. What we need and what we're committed to as a political party is to have a work guarantee for young people, so that there will be opportunities, but they'll also, and this is me talking, not the Labour Party, I think they need to be viable opportunities. You know, the number of young people I know who've been given the opportunity to join a programme which involves them traipsing around with sackfuls of leaflets on the minimum wage, and the employer being subsidised to have them doing that. You know, let's be honest about it. That's not going to make them any more employable. So it needs to be, viable work opportunities.
Yes, I mean, there's so many talented, skilled young people, and it's unfortunate that a lot of these young people are not reaching their full potential. And by that I mean getting the jobs that they really would be passionate about and be able to make a positive difference. I know Mayor Joe Anderson has pledged for more apprentices in the city, because there is a need. A lot of times, and it's unfortunate, employers, and from what you've said, you've applied for jobs and the employers don't say exactly what the job specification or what the skill they're looking for. And it's so, in terms of self-esteem breaking, that you've applied for several and you don't get it. How can young people get through the apprenticeship system within the area? What we've asked for, 20 young people in the L15, 7, 8 area to benefit from, working on that side. That is a small step to a positive change.
It's not only just about creating them opportunities, but also in keeping the motivation for young people up there, so then they when they get demoralised, know about to apply for so many 100 jobs and that, and it's keeping their motivation up, and it's how we do that, and giving them more confidence as well.
Do you know what my biggest pet peeve was when I was applying for jobs? Was them saying, oh, you need to have experience.
Yeah.
You need to have experience. You need to have experience. And I was like, where am I going to get this experience?
And that's
No one's
This
hiring
is
me.
exactly what I was saying. When I said there's got to catch 22 in like achieving the job, because they're saying you need experience, but then you're like, but don't I need the job to get the experience? So that's the problem.
I think the experience question, you have got to take, when they ask what experience you have, and change it to what transferable skills do you have.
Leading on from that, like, my next question was going to be, what do schools actually do to prepare young people for work? I mean, we have work experience, but that's 2 weeks and you get to work anywhere. And most of the jobs that I applied for were retail based, you know, Primark or Home Bargains or McDonald's, and those things, you know, didn't really. The work experience that I did was in the museum, so you couldn't transfer that from what I was doing there into the retail industry. I mean, did anyone else come up against similar problems or different problems?
I worked their office, and then like after it, I was like looking for a job, and because most part-time jobs are retail, so I was like, I can file.
I think that'd be a good idea. Getting the retail employers.
Yeah.
It's got people that would actually do employ young people.
There's a thing called informal recruitment. Have you ever heard of that? What it means is they don't advertise things. It's a question of who you know. And a lot of work experience is based on, can your mum or your dad or your uncle or your neighbour put in a good word for you? Well, if you haven't got that network of contacts who can put in a good word for you, then you don't even get on work experience. And even those who've gone through university and might want to do an internship, which is another kind of work experience, you don't get paid for it. And you don't get into the really good ones where you're going to eventually earn good money, again, unless you've got the contacts.
I mean, it's funny you should mention university, because I always thought in my head that the academic system went nursery, primary school, high school, university, and then job. But a lot of my friends, you know, done sixth form, college, they got a job straight out of school. So my question is, does university actually help in getting you a job? Getting you that
Depends on
job?
what job it is. I mean, if you want to be a social worker and youth worker, some experience is necessary, but you don't have to go study that for 3 years at a university. There can be some things...
But like I said, transferable skills.
Transferable skills. Well, there's things like, if I want to be a drama teacher, right, I can act for, you know, so many years, but I still need to go to university to do my teacher's degree. So there are some degrees that you need to have, another degree to get. And that will lead on to a career. So there's a difference between trying to determine what's the difference between a career and a job. There's a difference between working retail for a couple of years to support yourself and further in your career. You want to be a journalist, you've got to do something else.
What about you, Kelly? What do you think?
Because such a large proportion of people now go to universities, also because more are now widely available, the sort of superiority that gives you in the workplace is sort of decreased, because everybody now is getting a degree.
Courtney, can I just talk to you about your employment history and your experiences? Can you just talk about that for a minute?
I was able to gain a job because of my life experiences. Like I was telling you before, I attended Fairbridge, where Fairbridge was based in South Manchester.
Salford.
Yeah, not Salford, is it? It's more dominated by white people. And when I went there, I had to be able to not come off as aggressive and this stereotype black ghetto girl, but the rural welfare are nice. So the skills I learned from Fairbridge and from the area, different areas, I was able to put on my CV to say that I was able to adapt to different environments.
What about you, Anita? What about your history?
I've struggled with employment. I've applied for university twice and had offers, but I've decided not to go. Because I've been trying to decide whether I want to spend 3 years learning how to do something and have no experience in it, or spend the 3 years within the industry trying to work my way up. Recently I got to the point where I was like, okay, I've got so much experience, I've got years of experience of doing lots of stuff, and when do people start paying me now?
Can I just say something really quick? We can have as much support or as lack of support as we want, but if you're not like you're passionate, you're active If people aren't out there active, and maybe it's not even all being active in what you want to do, maybe it is just a case of working in a shoe shop for a year or two, or 6 months down the line, maybe even part-time, just to get the realistic side of living, you know, tick that box. But then everything else, like the passion you've got, you're going to do that anyway, whether you're working retail or this, that, you're going to be doing it anyway.
For me, it's very important to know that my want is my need. Like, I need money. Like, the reason I wanted work so much was because I needed it. I needed to support myself. I think a lot of young people are coming out of school and they're like, yeah, okay, I'm still living at home with my mum. Don't really need money that much because I'm still getting money if I want it from them. And a job isn't that important to them. But for me, it was what I had to do.
Just listening to what you're saying about your path and what you've done and where you go and that kind of stuff, it's very, 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 very similar to the artistic director of the Everman Playhouse, Gemma Beaudenay. I had a masterclass with her. She was telling us how she got into the industry and that kind of stuff, and it was internships, volunteer work, following directors, writing to people saying, can I follow you, can I do this, can I do that? All unpaid stuff. And it's led to a career where she could give Judi Dench a note in the back of a corridor.
Yeah.
And then now the artistic director of the Everman Playhouse.
I also want to touch on what you said about being in the industry and then doing university work. I hate using myself as an example, but I'm in my second year of broadcast journalism, and I'm also doing this, and I've also had work experience at BBC. I've applied for a year internship at BBC Academy down in London. It is possible to do both at the same time. You just have to be the master of time management, which I am still learning. I am not a master yet, but I think that it can be done. So I would challenge what you said about choosing one or the other. I think if you want it bad enough,
Yeah, it depends to what extent you want it. Like, if you want a career in something, you can't have a career. Exactly, something needs to be sacrificed. Sometimes you just need to be not rude. You need to be brave and confident and say, okay, give me a
and a little bit cheeky. To be fair.
It's all about determination, isn't it? Because people like seeing how much determination you've got. They see that you're able to go like a mile.
Yeah. Okay, we actually have a employer of young people in and amongst our ranks, Mr. Giles Agus. Hi, Giles.
Hello, Aaron.
Sorry for
Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too.
And to talk with you, it's always such a pleasure.
Can I ask, as someone who employs young people, such as me and my brother, what it is that has encouraged you to employ young people, first of all, and why you feel other employers should do the same thing?
You have ideas, energy, commitment, and untapped resources. One thing I will say is we've had a mixture here at Brouhaha of placements from university graduate placements and placements which are more community volunteering linked. The placements we've had from the university haven't really worked. Those young people cannot hit the ground running. They are not leaving higher education with the skills and the competencies, the key competencies, to be able to coordinate and manage and run a festival. Whereas our local volunteers, who are very versed in communication, who can sit in a room of a variety of different people and say, excuse me everyone, it's time to go now. Yeah? Those are skills we need. As employers, we don't necessarily need people who've had 3 years of academic training. We need young people who hit the ground running.
So I'll kind of bring that to Natalie and Ian and George then. What are your opinions on what was just said?
I'm a nurse. My profession is a nurse. But before that, I wanted to be a geologist because that was the background my father came from. And halfway through A-level studying geology, I realized I didn't even know how to help anyone when my mom took ill. So sometimes there's a turning point. So yes, sometimes your family or the schools, they say, you're doing brilliant at that. I think you'll be really good at that. So you're looking at going to university to do that. But halfway through, you realize I'm rubbish at it. Or that's just not for me. So I think schools don't do it enough to guide people and say, okay, what do you aspire to be? What would you like to be? And the pathways you can choose. Because then that would help young people decide and know that not just by doing a university, you can get that sense of fulfillment in a job or that passion that you're exhibiting.
So looking forward, Dorcas, Daniel, Anita, and yourself, Natalie, the youngest people among us, What do you believe should be done to make sure that young people do get employed?
I really like the school idea with the bringing like situations where like interviewing situations and stuff, because you like children, people who just come out of GCSE or wherever, they don't have experience in that, so you might as well bring people from different sectors and things that you aspire to be, or things that you're passionate in. Bring people who work in that industry into the school, so that you can understand what you have to attain in order to reach that.
What about the people that are not in school that unfortunately did drop out? Like, do you believe there's anything that could be put in place for them?
Projects. I did a lot of projects as a kid, and still a little bit now, and that gave me like a huge amount of experience and like transferable skills. So I think projects like in youth centres and stuff were extremely important, because they allow you to just express yourself and to see life in loads of different perspectives and to gain a load of different skills, and it also helps the community.
So what about you, Anita? Do you agree, or would you add on? Do you disagree?
I've got this thing that I would love for the educational system to look at doing, which is applying the subjects which are part of the national curriculum to real life situations. How do I apply what I'm learning to life? And how can I make a living, or how can I apply it to what I'm doing outside of the classroom? How could I make this into a business? If I really love making and creating these things, how can I make it into a business? What kind of products do I need? How would I advertise it? How would I build and set up a business? Why can't we apply every single subject, I believe, can be applied into a business and shown in the wider world of how to do it outside of the classroom?
I think it's really key that students learn very early on that what they do in school isn't just confined to the classroom. Everything that you need to learn in terms of discipline, about how to conduct yourself in the workplace, you learn the basics of it in school. You've got to put on a uniform, you've got to be there at 8 o'clock, you've got to do your tasks that you're given to you, you've got your managers and your supervisors, you've got to do your best throughout the day.
With school, it's also geared towards examinations. They have so many topics to cover, they don't have time to do that. But what they could do is offer like a weekly professional studies lesson or something, where you take examples of various jobs and which of your subjects, because often more than one will apply to certain jobs. So if you do like a case study each week of a certain type of job, that might be a more effective way, because there just isn't enough time at the end of every lesson to be like, right, what we've learned today applies to this job.
No, I'm talking about like embedding it in the actual curriculum. Like, forget the exams, not saying completely forget the exams, but we're coming out with GCSEs that in 5 years I'm not going to be able to use anyway. So it gives me something that I'm going to be able to use for life, not for 5 years. Do you know what I mean? So embed it in everything that we do, in every hour of every day of me going to school.
Yeah, like it could be like, even if you're teaching someone how to solve like algebra, you could be like, see the way people use those like Lego sticks, like say that applied to life, like those little sticks, you could just be like, and this is how you make the building. You know what I mean? Just like to help someone.
I agree.
But it is the reason that you go to school and learn these subjects. Is it specifically to get a job? For lots of the subjects, it's sort of learning around the job. You're not on a line to a job. It's to learn about the subject and what you find interesting, because you don't know what you want to do.
Right, guys, my producer is doing this to me. I don't know whether that means she's going to kill me or stop talking. That's all we've got time for.
Also.
No, Ryan! You can do it on a throne moment. So if you guys have got more things to say, you can go out to the toilet and sit there with a camera. Or go and see Lena, and she will give you cameras and you can express your opinions more. But we're going to have a spoken word artist, I believe, going by the name of Chatterbox, which I'm really excited again. Round of applause for her.
Human rights. Yeah, they sent people to fight, in spite of the fact that they agreed on points that should affect our lives positively. But why is it that we live in a time lacking positivity? Frankly, the policy that I see is a constructive function of corruption covered in deep cushions and fragrance lotion, force-feeding us their pathetic collective distortions.
The way I see it is that I see past your discreet, dark, sweet plate filled with unprintable plans against me. You see, one who craves doesn't see the picture clearly, but that's not me. I had the power to enforce communal liberty when you gave me freedom of thought and speech. This is the start of human rights done correctly.